My name is Ellie, and I lead a seemingly uneventful but actually turbulent life in the bustling and noisy city of New York. Every day, I shuttle between high-rise buildings, busy with trivial office affairs. When I return home, I face a marriage that is gradually losing its passion. Days just repeat themselves as if there is no end in sight. It was an ordinary afternoon. The sun shone through the blinds and cast dappled shadows on the desk. I was looking at the computer screen, my eyes feeling sore from staring at the documents for so long. Suddenly, the phone screen lit up, indicating a new email. I picked up the phone, unlocked the screen, and when I saw that the sender was the organizer of the class reunion, my heart stirred slightly. I clicked on the email and familiar names appeared one after the other. The images of laughing and playing together on campus flashed through my mind like a movie. The thought of seeing old classmates I hadn't seen for many years sent ripples through my heart, as if long-buried memories were suddenly awakened. Among the many names, my gaze lingered on the name, Jack. He was the boy I secretly had a crush on during my student days. Back then, I was young and ignorant, always silently watching his every move. The way he sweated on the basketball court, the way he thought hard in class, all of it was deeply imprinted in my heart. But I was young and timid and shy, and I never had the courage to confess my feelings to him. With graduation, this unrequited love was carefully buried deep in my heart. Now, having received an invitation to a class reunion, I couldn't help my heart racing at the thought of possibly seeing Jack again. A feeling of anticipation, nervousness, and excitement spread through my heart. In the following days, I couldn't help but think of the bits and pieces of my school days and the moments I spent with Jack. I began to prepare for the reunion, imagining the scene when we meet. In order to look my best at the party, I went shopping in every mall in New York, trying on one outfit after another. In the end, I chose a form-fitting black dress with a flattering cut that perfectly accentuated my figure. The dress had a unique neckline design that revealed my delicate collarbone slightly, which was both elegant and sexy. I also went to my usual hairdresser and asked the stylist to create a suitable hairstyle for me. The long blonde hair was kept soft and shiny and casually draped over my shoulders, adding a touch of femininity. I looked at myself in the mirror and felt like the confident and energetic girl I once was. The day of the reunion is getting closer and closer, and my mood is getting more and more excited. Every night I lie in bed, imagining the reunion with my classmates and the conversation I will have when I meet Jack again. I look forward to this reunion, to reconciling with my past self, and to rediscovering the long-lost youth and passion at this reunion. The night of the reunion finally arrived. The streets of New York were brightly lit and bustling with traffic. I stood in front of the mirror, taking a last long look at myself. The black dress I had chosen fit me perfectly, highlighting my curves. The soft, smooth fabric caressed my skin, exuding an air of elegance and mystery. I take a deep breath, step into my high heels, and slowly walk out of the house. The evening breeze caresses my face, my long blonde hair blowing in the wind, the scent of perfume wafting from the tips. When I arrive at the party hall, the moment I open the door, the lively atmosphere comes flooding in. The colorful lights are flashing, the cheerful music is flowing in the air, and the laughter of my classmates is intertwined. I raise my chin slightly, straighten my back, and walk into the hall with a confident stride. Under the lights, I became the center of attention. Many classmates' gazes were cast upon me, their eyes full of awe. I felt their gazes wander over me, and the feeling of being noticed made my heart swell with pride. Just then, I saw Jack. He was standing on the side of the crowd, holding a glass of wine in his hand, and our gazes met. A flash of awe crossed his eyes, followed by an unmistakable trace of admiration. Our gazes met in the air, as if time had stopped at that moment. My heart began to pound, as if I had returned to my school days, when I had secretly fallen in love with him. I walked towards Jack, every step light and graceful. The sound of my high heels tapping on the floor seemed to match the rhythm of my nervous excitement. Jack put down his glass and walked towards me. His pace was steady, his posture upright, just as handsome as I remembered. "Ellie, you look beautiful today," Jack said, smiling as he walked up to me. His voice was low and full of magnetism, like the sound of heavenly music echoing in my ears. I felt my cheek slightly burn, and I whispered, "Thank you, Jack, you haven't changed at all either." My classmates began to gather around, praising my appearance. I smiled and responded to their compliments, but my attention was always focused on Jack. We stood in the crowd, as if we were in a small world of our own, indifferent to the hustle and bustle around us. In the lively party atmosphere, Jack and I occasionally exchanged glances. Those fleeting moments of eye contact seemed to convey many unspeakable emotions. I knew that this party would be an unforgettable night in my life, and our reunion would also begin an unknown emotional journey. Jack's figure cut through the crowd and strode steadily towards me. His upright figure stood out against the lights. The noise around me seemed to be cut off, and all I could see was him. He walked up to me, leaned slightly, and gently placed a kiss on my cheek. This is a common greeting in Europe and America, but it made my heart race. "Ellie, I never thought I'd see such a charming you again here." His voice was low and full of magnetism, like mellow wine, easily intoxicating me. We found a relatively quiet corner to sit down, and the candlelight on the table flickered gently, casting a warm glow over us. Jack began to tell stories about the fun times we had as students. He remembered the nervous way I answered questions in class and the enthusiastic cheers I gave to cheer on the class at the sports day. Those details that I had forgotten in the corners of time came to life under his narration. His smile is still so charming, with the corners of his mouth slightly raised, revealing his white teeth and a sparkle in his deep eyes. I looked at him, as if I had returned to the past, to those days when I secretly had a crush on him. A warm current surged through my heart, and the feelings I once had slowly revived in my heart. As our conversation deepened, our topics became more and more diverse, ranging from memories of the past to our current lives, our interests to our life goals. We discovered that we had many common topics and similar views, and the more we talked, the more we hit it off, as if the people around us didn't exist. I confided in him about the monotony and helplessness of married life, the pressure of work, and the trivial matters of the home, which had gradually made me lose the enthusiasm and vitality I once had. Jack listened patiently, giving me understanding and comfort from time to time. His eyes were full of concern, and they made me feel the warmth I had longed for. He also shared with me his experiences over the years, his hard work in his career, and his emotional setbacks. I could feel the sincerity in his words and gained a deeper understanding of him. I don't know how long it lasted, but the music became soft and the lights became softer. Unknowingly, our distance had closed, and his hand gently rested on mine, sending an electric current through my body. My heart trembled, and I wanted to pull back my hand, but I didn't want to give up this warmth. In this ambiguous atmosphere, I knew that the emotions between us were no longer just simple school friendships. That old feeling, which had been sealed away by the passage of time, was like a young shoot breaking through the ground, quietly growing on this night. And I, too, seemed to have unknowingly fallen into this surging emotion, unable to extricate myself. In that warm and ambiguous corner, Jack and I were having a great conversation. Our words flowed naturally and smoothly, like a babbling brook. Memories from the past came flooding back as we told each other stories, and I almost forgot about everything around me. Just as I was basking in the joy of seeing Jack again and enjoying this rare moment, my phone in my handbag suddenly vibrated. I subconsciously pulled out my phone and saw the name Tom on the screen, and my heart tightened. Jack's gaze then fell on the screen of my phone, and his smile paused slightly. I looked apologetically at Jack and then pressed the answer button. "Hello, Tom." I tried to make my voice sound calm and natural. "Ellie, how was the party? Did you have fun?" Tom's voice came from the other end of the line, full of concern and familiarity. I took a deep breath and replied, "Well, it was pretty good. I saw a lot of old classmates. Everyone had a good time." However, my answer did not seem to satisfy Tom completely, and he began to ask about the details of the party, who had come and what had been talked about. My heart involuntarily flurried, and my eyes began to wander. While I was answering Tom's questions, I glanced at Jack secretly. I saw him sitting silently on the side, with a hint of loss in his eyes. I quickly ended the call with Tom and put the phone back in my bag. "Sorry, it's my husband," I explained, my voice a little hoarse. Jack managed to force a smile and said, "That's okay, he's just concerned about you." But I could feel that the call had broken the original harmonious atmosphere between us, and a subtle awkwardness filled the air. The music continued to play softly, and the laughter of my classmates continued to echo around the room, but I could no longer engage with Jack as fully as I had before. I tried hard to recapture the feeling I had just experienced, but no matter how hard I tried, I felt a little overwhelmed. Jack seemed to sense my unease and tried to start a new conversation, but our dialogue became intermittent and no longer flowed as naturally as before. My thoughts were disturbed by that phone call. I felt guilty towards Jack and helpless about my marital status. This unexpected interruption was like a stone suddenly thrown into a calm lake, sending ripples out. It made me waver in my resolve, and also put the just warming up emotions between Jack and me into a subtle and complex situation. In the days following the class reunion, my life appeared to be calm and uneventful on the surface, as it continued to progress as usual. Every morning, I prepared breakfast for Tom as usual and then saw him off to work, but inside, my heart was already in turmoil, filled with all kinds of complex emotions. Jack's figure always involuntarily pops up in my mind, his smile, his voice, and every detail of our conversations, all playing like a movie in my head. I began to frequently recall the bits and pieces of my student days related to him, those beautiful moments that I had once forgotten, but which now became crystal clear. I also began to reflect on my marriage. Tom and I have been married for many years, and the passion and romance of our early days have long since faded with the passage of time. Our lives have become unremarkable, repeating the same things every day, with no surprises and no ups and downs. Tom is a good husband. He treats me well, works hard, and has sacrificed a lot for our family. But I have gradually lost myself in this marriage. However, I am fully aware of my responsibilities as a wife. I cannot betray Tom and our family so easily because of a momentary impulse and the temptation of emotion. The bottom line of morality is always in my heart to remind me that I cannot do anything that I will regret. This emotional struggle makes me suffer terribly. Whenever it is late at night and I am lying in bed, my thoughts will drift uncontrollably to Jack. I imagine what our lives would be like if he and I could have been together. But at these times, I would remember Tom and the good things he had done for me, and I would feel full of guilt. I tried to keep myself busy, to numb my nerves with work and housework, but it was all in vain. Jack's shadow always lingered in my mind, and my guilt towards Tom grew with each passing day. I began to fear facing Tom, afraid that he would see the difference in me. I forced a smile on his face and tried to maintain a facade of calm, but inside I was in constant torment. I didn't know what to choose, whether to bravely pursue the feelings in my heart or to stick to my marriage and responsibilities. This painful struggle exhausted me, as if I were in a dark abyss, unable to find a way forward. During those few days, I tried hard to get back on track and to get Jack out of my mind. I put more energy into my work and found things to do after work to avoid having free time to think about things. However, fate seems to always play tricks on people, and some relationships are not something you can avoid. One sunny afternoon, I went to buy coffee at the nearby coffee shop as usual. As I walked into the shop, the familiar aroma of coffee hit my nose. I joined the queue to place an order, and my eyes inadvertently swept over the seating area in the shop. Just then, my gaze met someone's, and my heart suddenly sank. My bag in my hand almost fell to the ground. It was Jack. He was sitting by the window, and the sunlight streaming through the glass cast a soft halo around him. He was wearing a simple white shirt with the collar slightly open, showing off his toned collarbone, and paired it with some dark jeans. He looked both casual and handsome. He also saw me, and surprise and excitement flashed in his eyes for a moment, before the familiar deep emotion filled the room again. I froze in place, my mind went blank, and all the defenses I had worked so hard to build up suddenly collapsed like paper. He stood up and walked towards me, each step as if it were stepping on my heart. Ellie, what a coincidence. His voice was still low and full of magnetism, with an imperceptible tremor. I opened my mouth, wanting to say something, but found that I couldn't say a word. Just as I was at a loss for words, he suddenly took a step forward and embraced me tightly in his arms. I could feel his strong heartbeat and hear his rapid breathing. At that moment, all my reason seemed to be thrown behind me, and my body responded uncontrollably to him, and my hands slowly wrapped around his waist. The gazes of the people around us were cast upon us, but I didn't care. I knew that I had already fallen into this dangerous emotional whirlpool and could not extricate myself. In his embrace, I felt as if I had found long-lost warmth and comfort. Those once secret crushes, those palpitations after reuniting, all came flooding back in an instant, completely overwhelming me. We didn't part for a long time. I blushed, afraid to look him in the eye. My heart was filled with a little sweetness and a lot of unease. I didn't know what to do next, nor where this relationship would lead, but I knew that from this moment on, Jack and I would never go back to the past. After our chance encounter and embrace on the street, our contact became more frequent. Those days, I felt as if I were in an illusory dream, indulging in the sweetness of being with him, temporarily forgetting my inner struggles and guilt. One day, Jack asked me to meet him at a quiet restaurant. His expression seemed a little serious, which made my heart inexplicably rise with a sense of unease. We sat in the corner, surrounded by soft, dim lighting, creating an atmosphere of mystery. He gazed into my eyes, took a deep breath, and said slowly, "Ellie, I actually always knew that you liked me when we were students, and I had the same feelings for you back then. It was just that at the time, due to some family and academic pressures, I didn't have the courage to confess my feelings to you. This reunion really makes me feel that it is fate that has given us the opportunity to start again." Hearing his words, I felt a mixture of emotions. On the one hand, I felt a little relieved that my years of unrequited love had finally been reciprocated. On the other hand, I always felt that there was something hidden in his words. As the conversation deepened, I began to notice some flaws in his words. When he mentioned certain things, his eyes always flickered, and his tone was a little unnatural. When I tried to ask him in depth about his experiences over the years, he always skillfully changed the subject. Finally, after I pressed him again and again, his expression became a little flustered. He hesitated for a moment and then slowly said, "Ellie, in fact, the reason I approached you this time is not only because of old feelings, but also because of some other reasons. My company has recently encountered some trouble, and your husband Tom's company happens to control some key resources and information. I hope to use you to obtain something that will benefit my company." Hearing this truth, I felt like I had been struck by thunder and my whole body froze. I couldn't believe that the person I loved so deeply had approached me for such a purpose. The beautiful reunion I had once thought about was just a conspiracy carefully planned by him. "Jack, how could you?" I always thought. My voice trembled and tears welled up in my eyes. He tried to explain, reaching out to take my hand, but I quickly avoided it. "Ellie, I really had no choice. I didn't want to lose my company. But while spending time with you, I realized that my feelings for you are real." I interrupted him, my heart filled with anger and disappointment. It turned out that my feelings had always been nothing more than a tool for him to use. I stood up and looked at him coldly. "Jack, you have really disappointed me. It's over between us." With that, I turned and left, leaving him sitting there alone. As I walked out of the restaurant, the cold night wind blew on my face, but I felt no coolness at all. My heart was filled with doubt and pain, and I didn't know how to face it all or how to confess to Tom. After learning the real reason why Jack approached me, my life instantly plunged into endless darkness and chaos. During the day, I was at the office, staring at the computer screen. The dense files and data became blurry, and Jack's face and his heartbreaking words kept popping up in my mind. At night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep for a long time. My heart was filled with pain and confusion. On the one hand, There was a once unrequited love, which was the fondest memory of my youth. Jack was so perfect in my heart, and every smile and frown of his could touch my heartstrings. Those times I spent with him, those sweet moments, were like soft brushes gently brushing my heart, making it difficult for me to let go. I kept recalling the bits and pieces of our reunion, his care, his tenderness. Were they all false? My feelings for him still exist in my heart, like a tough vine, tightly entwined around my heart, making it impossible for me to let go easily. On the other side is my family and the truth. Tom is my husband, and he has always been caring and loving. Although our married life has gradually become dull, I can see his dedication and responsibility. I know that I cannot betray him and our family because of a moment of impulse and the temptation of affection. Moreover, Jack's use of my actions made me feel extremely angry and disappointed. I cannot tolerate myself becoming a tool for someone else to achieve their goals. The truth is like a cold, sharp blade, piercing my heart and forcing me to face reality. I wavered between the two, and every thought was like walking on a razor's edge, painful. I tried to forget about Jack and tried to return to normal life, but every night when it was quiet, those memories would come flooding back. I also wanted to tell Tom everything, but the words were on the tip of my tongue and I swallowed them back. I was afraid of seeing his disappointed eyes and losing his trust. As the days passed, my inner struggle became more and more intense. Finally, on a quiet night, I sat alone in front of the window, looking at the bright moon outside, and made a difficult decision. I can't go on like this anymore. I can't let myself go further and further down the wrong path. I decided to return to my family and confess everything to Tom. Even if I will face his anger and accusations, I am willing to bear the consequences, because I know that only in this way can I truly be relieved and regain the direction of my life. The next day, I left work early and prepared a nice dinner. When Tom came home and saw the table full of food, he looked surprised. I took a deep breath, gathered my courage, and told him everything. After I finished, I lowered my head and waited for his reaction, my heart filled with trepidation and unease. After confessing everything to Tom, I was filled with uncertainty and unease, not knowing if he could truly let go completely. During those days, I paid close attention to his emotional changes and carefully interacted with him, afraid that any word or action would touch his inner wounds. However, Tom's behavior surprised me. He didn't lose his temper as I expected, nor did he speak harshly to me. He just listened to me quietly. Although there was a hint of hurt in his eyes, there was more understanding and tolerance. After I finished talking, he gently took my hand and said calmly, "Ellie, I know these days have been hard for you. Let bygones be bygones and let's start again." I was deeply moved by Tom's tolerance, and tears once again blurred my eyes. From then on, we worked hard together to repair our marriage. We started trying new activities together, going to the countryside for picnics on weekends or going to watch a romantic movie. We also became more open about sharing our thoughts and feelings with each other, and the once dull life gradually gained new vitality. In order to completely let go of those unwanted feelings, I decisively blocked all contact with Jack. I no longer reminisce about the past with him, but devote all my energy to my family and work. Whenever a slight thought of Jack occasionally arises in my heart, I remind myself that the family I have now is the most precious. As the days passed, life returned to normal. Tom and I grew closer, trusting and supporting each other. I also learned to cherish the happiness in front of me and no longer be troubled by the emotions of the past. One day, while sorting through old things, I accidentally found my graduation photo from my student days. Looking at the young me and my classmates in the photo, I couldn't help but feel a flood of emotions. All those unrequited loves and youthful heartaches are now in the past. Life is like a journey, full of uncertainties and challenges, but as long as we hold fast to our inner principles and cherish the people around us, we will be able to find our own happiness. Whenever I think of that class reunion, I feel like it was a dream that made me grow and taught me to cherish. It made me understand that what really matters is not those unattainable fantasies, but the family that has always been by my side. I have also strengthened my belief that I must take good care of this family, walk hand in hand with Tom through every day in the future, and create beautiful memories together.